What if a divine empire was forged not by kings, but by fire, storm, and sea? Imagine a chain of islands, adrift in fog and silence. Its forested hills whispering ancient names. Beneath the canopy of cedar and cypress, fires flicker in stone hearths, as the first humans shape clay into faces, thousands of years before Rome, before Egypt, before time was counted. This is Japan. Jōmon no Kuni. The land of corded ware. The Jōmon live by the tide, by the hunt, by the seasons. A people of bone and shell, of ritual and rhythm. But time, like the waves, brings change. From the Korean peninsula come new seeds. Rice. Bronze. Iron. The yayoi follow. Clans form. Villages swell. Bloodlines strengthen. And from among them, the Yamato rise. They do not merely lead. They claim descent from the sun goddess herself. Amaterasu. A divine mandate. A living god on earth. The first emperors do not need to conquer with armies. They conquer with myth. The earth gave them gods, but men made emperors. Burial mounds rise from the plains. Massive keyhole tombs, guarded by Hanua warriors in clay. Within, swords wrapped in silk, mirror-polished bronze, the bones of kings and queens. Japan is being born not in blood, but in silence, ritual, and stone. But beyond the mountains, beyond the incense and scrolls, steel is beginning to whisper. In Kyoto, time slows. Cherry blossoms drift through palace corridors like falling poetry. Pages rustle. Silk whispers. And in candlelit chambers, nobles compose verses not with ink, but with longing. This is the Heian period, a time of grace and stillness. A world ruled by beauty, not battle. The emperor sits enthroned, but real power has shifted. The Fujiwara clan, masters of marriage and maneuvering, rule from behind the screen. Art flourishes. So does etiquette. The tale of Genji, the world's first novel, is written here, between sighs and courtly glances. But elegance hides erosion. While Kyoto dreams in ink and incense, the provinces slip into shadow. Bandits raid villages. Clans feud. The court cannot hear the screams beyond the mountains. And so, new men rise. Not poets. Warriors. Farmers turned protectors. Local guards turned elite cavalry. Bound by loyalty, trained in war, wielding the katana as both sword and soul. The samurai are born. They recited poems in moonlight, but spilled blood at sunrise. Among them, two clans rise above all, the Taira and the Minamoto. Their rivalry erupts into war, the Genpei War. Castles burn. Ships clash. The sea swallows the child emperor Antoku at Dan no Yura, ending his life, and an era. Victory belongs to Minamoto no Yoritomo. But he does not take the throne. Instead, he creates something new, something dangerous. The shogun. Japan is no longer ruled by the divine. It is ruled by the sword. A storm is coming. And it's not born in the heavens, but on the steppes of Mongolia. In 1274, a message is delivered to the Japanese court. A demand from the great Kublai Khan: submit or suffer. The reply? Silence. And beheaded envoys. The answer is war. From across the sea, a fleet unlike any Japan had seen. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of soldiers. Mongols. Chinese. Koreans. United under one emperor's ambition. The samurai wait on the shores of Hakata Bay. Their armor polished. Their swords sharp. But they have never faced gunpowder. Never heard thunder in battle. Never seen war like this. The invasion crashes like a wave. Japanese lines falter. Towns burn. But just as quickly, the sea turns violent. A typhoon strikes. Ships are torn apart. Soldiers drown in armor. The Mongols retreat. They try again in 1281. Stronger. Smarter. But the gods have not finished speaking. Another storm rises. Another fleet destroyed. The Japanese call it kamikaze, the divine wind. They believed the gods had spared them, but it came with a curse. Though victorious, the Kamakura shogunate pays the price. Years of war. Fortifications. Ruinous spending. But no land to reward the warriors. No spoils. Only silence. Resentment festers. The emperor, long a ghost in court, begins to stir. Discontent brews in every province. The foundation begins to crack. The wind saved Japan from the Mongols. But it could not save it from itself. The divine wind had scattered the Mongols. But it could not stop what came next. A slow unraveling. The Kamakura shogunate, weakened by its hollow victory, collapses. The emperor briefly reclaims the throne, only to be crushed by the next warlord. Japan fractures into a battlefield of ambition. The year is 1467. The capital burns in the Unin War. And from its ashes, a century of chaos begins. The Sengoku Jidai, the age of the warring states. Feudal lords, or daimyo, carve up Japan with fire and sword. Castles rise. Alliances crumble. Honor is just another blade to sharpen. In this storm, 3 men rise. 3 names that will shape destiny. Oda Nobunaga, brilliant, ruthless, modern. He wields muskets and fear like no warlord before him. In 1571, he burns Mount Hai, a holy temple, killing thousands of monks. Mercy is weakness. But power breeds betrayal. In 1582, his own general, Akechi Mitsuhide, turns on him. Nobunaga dies in flames, at Honnoji. Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a peasant-turned-strategist, seizes the moment. He unites the rest of Japan. But his invasion of Korea ends in disaster. And his death leaves a power vacuum. One final war remains. When peace becomes impossible, men begin to dream of kingdoms. In 1600, the fields of Sekigahara run red. Thousands clash in a single day. And when the dust settles, one name remains. Tokugawa Ieyasu. He ends the war. Unites the land. And builds a peace that will last, for 200 years. The swords fall silent. The fields heal. And for the first time in centuries, Japan breathes. Tokugawa Ieyasu, now shogun, builds not just a regime, but a system. Rigid. Controlled. Enduring. From his new capital of Edo, he establishes a government unlike any before it. Daimyo are ordered to rotate residence, part-time in Edo, part-time in their domains. Their families remain in Edo, hostages in peacetime. No uprising will go unnoticed. No ambition unchecked. Trade is regulated. Christianity is outlawed. Foreigners are expelled. The policy is clear, absolute, Sakoku, the closed country. For over 2 centuries, Japan seals itself off from the world. No one leaves. Almost no one enters. They ended war, not with freedom, but with silence. And yet, within that silence, beauty flourishes. Cities grow. Art blossoms, kabuki theater, haiku poetry, ukiyo-e woodblock prints. The samurai, once warriors, now serve as bureaucrats and administrators. The sword gives way to the scroll. But not all is still. Beneath the surface, pressure builds. Famine strikes. Peasants riot. Merchants grow wealthy, while samurai fall into debt. The world beyond Japan modernizes. Empires rise. But the shogunate clings to the old ways. As black sails begin to form, just beyond the horizon. Peace cannot last forever. July 1853. For black ships drift into Edo Bay. Smoke billows from their chimneys. Cannons glint in the sunlight. This is not a trade mission. It is a demand. Commodore Matthew Perry, backed by the power of the United States, delivers a letter. Open your ports, or we will open them for you. The Tokugawa shogunate, brittle and aging, is paralyzed. 200 years of isolation, shattered in a single afternoon. Within a year, Japan signs the Treaty of Kanagawa. Ports open. Customs bend. The outside world pours in. The samurai are stunned. Their swords are useless against steam and steel. One cannon shattered centuries of silence. Discontent explodes. Some demand expulsion of the foreigners. Others demand revolution. Two slogans rise. Revere the emperor. Expel the barbarians. Ironically, those who worship tradition embrace change. In 1868, after years of upheaval, rebellion, and assassination, the shogunate collapses. The emperor is restored. The Meiji Restoration begins. The samurai are abolished. Their stipends revoked. Their status erased. Their topknots fall like cherry blossoms in winter. Some adapt. Others refuse. In 1877, the last stand comes, the Satsuma Rebellion. Led by Saigō Takamori, the last true samurai charges into modern rifles, and falls. They fought to preserve honor, and awakened into revolution. The age of the sword has ended. But from its ashes, steel begins to rise. The emperor rules once more. But this is not the court of old Kyoto. This is a Japan reborn, cloaked not in silk, but in steel. Railways stretch across the countryside. Telegraph wires hum over rice fields. Uniformed soldiers march to Western drills. The Meiji Restoration is not restoration, it is revolution. In a generation, Japan transforms from feudal archipelago to industrial nation-state. Factories rise. Education spreads. A new constitution is drafted. And a modern army, trained in Prussian style, now serves a divine emperor. They studied the West, and built a mirror sharper than steel. But steel is never passive. Japan turns outward. In 1895, it defeats Qing China and claims Taiwan. In 1905, it shocks the world, defeating Imperial Russia at Tsushima. For the first time, an Asian power has humbled a European empire. The sun no longer simply rises. It conquers. Pride swells at home. But so does nationalism. Korea is annexed. The military grows bolder, more autonomous. Politicians give speeches. But the generals make decisions. They prove their strength, but awakened old hungers. The empire stands tall. But its gaze turns dark. The rising sun has become a storm. The army no longer asks permission. It acts. In 1931, Japan invades Manchuria. In 1937, it unleashes total war on China. Cities fall. Civilians are massacred. The name Nanjing becomes a scar that history still bleeds. They chased an empire, and brought hell to earth. In the name of divine mission, Japan forges its Greater East Asia co-prosperity sphere. But it's conquest, not liberation. Colonies under a new emperor, a new flag. The world watches. Then, December 7, 1941. Pearl Harbor. A surprise attack. American ships burn. War begins. The Pacific becomes a graveyard. Singapore. Philippines. Burma. The Japanese advance is swift, ruthless, relentless. But empires overreach. In 1942, the tide turns. Midway. Guadalcanal. Iwo Jima. Island by island, the U.S. advances. Japan resists. Fanatically. Desperately. Cities are firebombed. Civilians incinerated. Then, August 6, 1945. Hiroshima. A city vaporized in seconds. 3 days later. Nagasaki. For the first time in history, humanity glimpses apocalypse. And it speaks Japanese. On August 15, Emperor Hirohito speaks over the radio. And surrenders. They built an empire, but buried their future. The war is over. Japan is defeated. But not destroyed. The war ends in ash. Cities smolder. Millions are homeless. An emperor, once divine, now silent. The rising sun has fallen. But Japan does not disappear. It does something few nations ever do. It reinvents itself. Under American occupation, a new constitution is written. Democracy blooms. Women gain the right to vote. The emperor is stripped of divinity, but kept as symbol. The military is dismantled. Article 9 is born. Japan shall never again wage war. From the ruins, factories stir. Steel, electronics, textiles, sparks of a new economy. Within decades, Japan becomes a titan, not of empire, but of industry. They lost the war, but remade the future. In the 1960s, the Shinkansen bullet train blurs through the countryside. Tokyo hosts the Olympics. A nation once bombed from the sky, now launches satellites. Sony. Toyota. Nintendo. Japan redefines modernity itself. And yet, it never abandons its soul. The temples remain. The tea ceremony continues. Tradition lives, beside technology. The phoenix has risen. From the sword, to the circuit. From ashes, to animation. Japan is reborn. Japan, the land of the rising sun. A nation carved by volcanoes, war, silence, and rebirth. From the myths of the Jōmon. To the elegance of Heian courts. From the fury of the samurai. To the flames of Hiroshima. Its story is not one of linear progress. But of cycles. Collapse. Reconstruction. Fall. Rise. It is a land where robots serve tea. But monks still chant in ancient halls. Where anime inspires the world. Yet sumo wrestlers still bow in dusty rings. Its emperors no longer command armies. But still walk among legends. And its people, stoic, inventive, poetic, carry memories in silence. Time never broke Japan, it shaped her. In the end, Japan is more than its wars. More than its machines. It is a mirror held up to humanity. Reflecting both its beauty and its fragility. This is Japan. Not an island nation. But a legacy that still rises with every sun.